Maybe you've got the vid.
Gang hang. I don't have the vid. It took the test. So we are. Thank you for that applause. I appreciate that. That was great. We're having some fun with the soundboards this morning. We're here for our Saturday morning gang hang. My name is Matt Baum.
I'm the Internet's Joe Patrick. Turn on your camera.
And
act like you've been
on Saturdays.
Like
we show up and talk to you guys about all kinds of stuff. And there's all kinds of stuff to talk about. Blade is dead. Long live Blade. Some people saw it coming. Others did not.
Delayed indefinitely.
Marvel admitted
It is dead.
It is dead. Marvel admitted they don't think about their stuff enough. And they're going to start thinking about stuff more.
He's only undead.
Yeah, indeed.
Absolute Wonder Woman came out this week. We got a Creatures Commandos trailer. Greg Capullo has been flexing on the internet all yesterday. I think we should start there. I think we should start with our friend Greg.
So I mean, look, it's this very okay.
Reset it first.
So FCO Placentia, Greg Capullo's,
who is a confirmed person. We like now that we know someone is like calling them out. They are a person and not a collective. We weren't totally sure.
Yeah, I don't know what like FCO stands for. It doesn't matter.
I thought they were.
We all
a gang.
know who that. We all know who it is.
Yeah.
Is Greg Capullo's longtime colorist had to drop out of Wolverine Revenge because of the grueling schedule. And I'm paraphrasing, so I might be getting some of the details incorrect, but basically it boils down to Greg Capullo saying, you know, this business isn't for everybody. If you want to make it as a professional comic artist, you might have to work 16-hour days, 7 days a week. Yeah. He's basically advocating, or I don't know if advocating is the right word, but he's basically proposing the idea that a health-destroying, life-destroying work schedule is the way forward as a professional comic artist.
The only way, by the way. You have to.
I mean, he's essentially gatekeeping.
Yes.
Well, it's very like, I don't know how. I know that he's older than us, but I don't know if he would necessarily be considered a boomer. But it's a very previous generation kind of philosophy where it's like,
oh, I don't know. I kind of disagree because, like, look, in the restaurant world, same thing. You have these.
Well,
like,
sure. Yeah, I know. I get it.
I think it's more of a stereotypical work ethic bullshit where it's like
specifically with him.
Give
though,
yourself
it's
to your job. Like whatever.
Specifically with him though, he was saying like, my grandma scrubbed toilets until she was 72 years old, and she didn't get days off, and then she still came home and cooked a meal and blah blah blah.
Turns out she didn't wash her hands, and we all got sick.
And that's the example that I live by. Like that's some like, look, man, good for her for. I guess, but that's not something to aspire to. That's not a way anybody should have to live.
Okay, well, here's the deal. Look, if you want to do that, and that is your personal choice, and that worked for him, and that's how he got where he is, congratulations, Greg. You're a hardworking guy. Here's what you don't do. Call people out on the internet for taking care of themselves, period.
Yeah.
Or for any professional bullshit.
Yeah,
There's never been a time where someone's gotten on the internet and they're like, hey, I'm going to call you out for some personal things that I don't like that we deal with professionally in front of, God and everybody. And everybody goes, yeah, we agree. Screw you, FCO Placentia, you lazy piece of garbage. Like, nobody came to his defense.
I thought the best response to Capullo was, and the most prescient was Phil Hester.
Yeah.
He responded with, as someone who almost destroyed their body.
Yeah.
As somebody who almost drew himself to death, I think is what he said.
Yeah. Hester can speak to that from a place that none of us can. And, I thought, and he made a good point, like if you're drawing 18 hours a day, those last 8 hours that work's probably going to suck anyway.
Yeah. Like how good is that work?
Give me a break.
Right. How, that's not going to be of any good to anyone. And I get it. Like it is a generational thing, right? So JD, you pointed out in the chat, he's 62. So, I mean, it is a very like, I think it is a very like boomer generation, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of mentality. And it's like, that's all well and good, but that's not the way anybody should have to live ever.
No,
especially not in 2024.
It's generational. It's still toxic.
It's
still toxic, right? It's toxic.
I hate that. I hate that crap on the writing side too. It's like, I mean, I've rebelled against it for years. That idea of, well, if you're not writing every minute of every day, then you're not really a writer. I'm like,
right.
You know
what?
Exactly.
And it's the same. It's the same
ableist piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's the same even with amateur artists. You know, where it's like, you gotta this. Some people do it because they want to. And that's one thing. Like, I've got some artist friends that draw every day because they want to, because that's just their outlet. That's what they do. Me, there are days where I can't, like, I'm not picking up a pencil is the last thing I want to do. And you know what? And maybe that, like, look, I'm never going to be a professional artist, but nobody is saying that putting in that much hard work isn't going to help you improve as an artist. But like, if you're already in the industry, FCO Placentia is an established name in the industry.
Right.
There's no way that dude should be having to do backbreaking labor to color fucking comic books.
Right. And let's keep in mind, he's not a millionaire either. This dude is not raking it. Like, this isn't professional. This isn't the NFL. You know, like, I get it. Tom Brady was created in a tube to play football, and they plugged wires into him and pumped football into him, and that's all he did all his life, and he's probably the best ever. Sure. He got paid hundreds of millions of dollars to do that too.
Right. Yeah.
And even those athletes, they're like, you got to take care of yourself. You've got to, you know, you can't work out all day every day. You got to do flexibility shit. Jimbo, who was the mangaka that like literally drew himself to death? Who was that? He was a famous guy.
So that's Hunter x Hunter author Tagashi.
Yes.
His back was so bad he could only draw like laying down.
God,
he's most notably. So he did Yu Yu Hakusho. He literally just had to quit because it got so bad.
Yeah.
Then he started Hunter x Hunter, and Hunter x Hunter he's actually re-releasing chapters, but you go multiple years without break. So Hunter x Hunter started with One Piece. One Piece is at chapter like 1100 something. And Hunter x Hunter's on chapter 402, or you know.
Oh, so it's barely even getting its footing yet. It's only 400 issues to you.
Yeah, still good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, but like, no. So in Japan, when something like this happens, when like a famous artist, like, look, I destroyed my hand, or I broke my back from bending over my damn drawing table. Do people call him out? Like, do people get on the internet and be like,
no,
maybe you need to be tougher, bro? You know?
No, people usually don't. Like, I guess now with Twitter, some of the Americans will, like, American content creators will like call people out.
Of course,
but it's like, bro, calm down. But
fucking
like, their livelihood lives on making videos.
In defense of Capullo a little bit, like, it's not like he was being a bro about it.
No,
he was just being. It was definitely a mentality where it's just like, well, and it's not even that he was saying anything bad per se about FCO Placentia. Well,
it's not even that it was bad. I think it's the wrong place to do it. Period.
He wasn't like bad mouthing the guy. He was just saying it's like, look, some people prioritize different.
But that's also,
and if you want to make it in comics, you got to prioritize comics.
But that's also pretty much. I mean, like, come on, that's some backhanded bullshit.
I get it.
I guess his job isn't for everybody.
Saying maybe this. Yeah, maybe this industry isn't for you. If you're saying that, that's strictly gatekeeping, and it's bullshit. I don't care what kind of positive spin you want to put on it. It's bullshit gatekeeping.
It's also not some kid that's coming up in the industry. This dude has been around for what, 25 years? I don't remember how long I've been seeing this guy's name. He's not like a newcomer.
He drew the entirety of. He colored all of Capullo's Batman.
Yeah,
I think. Like.
Well, and so, he colored a huge chunk of Invincible as well. So like the guy has been around for a long time, and like, look, and so Capullo deleted like the inciting tweet, but he's still like doubling down and responding to people and saying little comments here and there. And he's like, "Hey, look, man, this isn't advice; it's a reality."
Yeah.
And then people are responding like, "This isn't advice; it's a warning."
Yeah. Okay, bro. You know?
Right.
Yeah, and so I mean, it sucks. It's kind of a shitty attitude, and like nobody should fault somebody for prioritizing. We don't even know why the guy canceled. We also don't know why. Like, why was the deadline so?
What was that? Hold
so
on.
tough?
Brian.
Is it because your line art was very late, Greg?
Well,
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think is the most obvious thing, right? Like, this is a miniseries that Capullo has been involved with for a year now, and he's obviously behind on it.
Yes.
Because he's always behind on things. And to publicly go out and trash, I mean, I think he trashed him. If he did it, you know, the story is on Bleeding Cool that at New York Comic Con, he was at the bar talking trash about him.
Different thing.
Like, that's different.
That's
different.
different.
Like, that happens, right?
Yeah.
You talk trash about your coworkers.
Sure.
Because they dropped the ball and now you're waiting and blah, blah, blah. Like, that
somebody
happens to
overheard him
everybody.
arguing or something. Whatever. That's different.
Yeah, right. But to go on Twitter and be like, you can't cut it to your, like, decade-long collaborator is like, that guy, the ego on Capullo, who has the world's worst facial hair, is just like
he
staggering.
does.
Like,
He does have the world's worst facial hair.
He's so lame and he's so cheesy with his muscle shirts and his goatee and like come on, man, like get some perspective. It's comic and it's a mid Wolverine comic.
Oh,
like,
that was where I was going next. I don't think it's very good. I don't think Wolverine Revenge is very good at all.
I just listened to your review of it last night, and like it's just
your complaints weren't with the art, though, Matt.
No, not the art, but partially the art and the story. Yeah, I mean, like, look, even the look of it is kind of silly and 90s, and I don't know what we're doing. And like, what is it? What is Wolverine Revenge? I understand it's like a standalone story where
it's out of continuity.
They get to do whatever they want, but they're not telling like some deep story that gets to the core of Wolverine. It's just like, and then he cut Deadpool in half. Like, okay.
Well, you know, I think the thing about it that kind of, and I agree with Matt that it's in this nebulous place, and it's something that I think one of those reasons of why DC has dozens of like evergreen stories that anyone can read at any time that don't mean anything. And this story, you know, the Magneto and the space, and I mean, this could have been set in the 90s, except they have to mention Krakoa for no reason.
Right.
And they have like putting Nick, like original Nick Fury in there puts it in a time frame. And they could have just done that, but then they also have the Winter Soldier because he's like cool. But like, don't include him. Don't talk about Krakoa, and this story could take place 30 years ago.
This almost feels like the Spawn Batman thing that they did, you know, a few years back, where Todd McFarlane's like, I'm going to write Spawn into Batman's origin. And it was like so obvious that they had done part of this miniseries
really early,
years and years ago.
This was one of your conspiracy
and then
theories.
they just plugged some new shit in like, to finish it.
It happens like, and Scott Snyder will do it on his things where he has to mention like year zero. And it's like, don't do that, man. Like, don't do it.
Why?
It's irrelevant. Let us put it, because it's easier to put in if you start defining the edges, you start looking for the whole picture, right?
Yes.
But if it's a story that it takes place in the past, like you could do it. But if you draw them in like the New 52 bat suit, then all right, well, this is obviously in this
exactly.
period. Like, you know, but if you keep it in like a generic like bat suit, then like if you did it with like the Batman Incorporated, like that glowing bat symbol chest thing,
no
like,
one would, and we'd just be like,
you're gonna think it's part of that era. You know, like you could just do it, make it less complicated, make it less defined, and the story would be fine. But the Krakoa thing means like this happened 6 months ago.
Yeah, that's
right? Like
that's the other thing between this, the regular Wolverine comic, which is also happening in some nebulous time, and Wolverine and Uncanny X-Men, which seems to be happening at the same time as the X-Men book. It all becomes baffling. Like, what are we doing? Why are we?
But Wolverine is not in the main X-Men book.
No, he's in Uncanny X-Men, which I'm saying happens at the same time as the X-Men book because they're having conversations. They're literally calling each other.
Cyclops is on the phone with Rogue.
Yeah, like, I mean, so we know that all that's happening. And then you have 2 separate Wolverine stories, one of which is your regular Wolverine monthly, which is fine. And it's happening somewhere in this timeline.
Look,
and Revenge
we've gotten
is
off topic here. So yeah, we get it.
I'm trying to move on to I'm trying to move on to
so-
this because we're going to move on to Absolute Wonder Woman and how DC is handling this. And I talked a bunch of shit about DC going, where's this take place? Where's this take place? But because they have all this disparate stuff, like we would read a Wolverine story if it was framed the same way and just be like, whatever. Okay.
So
That's
all
what
right,
Revenge is doing.
let's shift gears then, because you've been talking shit about where things take place literally since the day I met you.
Yes.
And and every time it comes up, I'm like, is this your first day on the job? Is this your first day reading comic books?
But Joe, just like
these
we discussed,
things don't all take place exactly at the same moment.
I understand that, but when the Joker shows up with his face cut off, you know when this is taking place.
I get it.
When they
I
say
understand
the
that,
word
but I mean,
Krakoa,
like,
you know this is supposed to be taking place somewhere.
I understand. And I'm saying, like, when you get it, when you make a purposeful choice that is at odds with everything else, like putting original Nick Fury in a story that references Krakoa, that's different. But having a story where Asgard is floating over New York City in one comic, but not in another, is not something that should break anyone's
That's not
brain
what
if
I'm
they've read
talking
more
about.
than one comic book.
That's not what I'm talking about here at all.
So, so DC has had all of these different imprints or whatever you want to call them for a long time now.
Sure.
At first it was Vertigo, and then it was Black Label, and now Vertigo is back. So
Black Label's here.
Let's make that the headline. Vertigo is back. It's coming back. Just announced at New York Comic Con, and the initial wave of books will be the James Tynion Nice House. Fill in the blank,
which is awesome.
And so retroactively, Nice House by the Lake, or whichever one was the first one, will be rebranded a Vertigo story, and then the new one that's coming out will be Vertigo.
Right.
And then there will be new books, and and then the Nice Lake House where JD resides, and it will be
Joe. If I could jump in real quick, just for a second,
please do.
Yeah,
just to take that great because another thing I brought up at the very beginning that's like this. I'm actually reading Nice House in the Lake right now on Global Comix. Because he also quietly joined Global Comix.
They joined Global Comix, which is a big deal. Yeah,
has digital availability. It's spotty. It's mostly like their evergreen stuff. I see a lot of ongoing, but I don't see much current. I think 2021 is like the most recent stuff I've seen. But
so it's like like a back library.
Yeah, it's a back library, but it's the stuff that like you would have to. Well, I don't know. Here's Waller versus Wildstorm. I don't know how old that is.
I mean, that was last year.
That
was this year. That was this year.
It's a little.
Oh, this is 2023. So
yeah, it's a year old. It was like a 4-issue mini.
Was it? Yeah, I guess it was last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say I think this is pretty smart to get people reading. DC Comics. It's $100 if you want the DC Infinite thing for a year where you're 1 month behind. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But, they can sell individual issues of comics and not, hurt those sales by putting up old back issues on Global Comix.
Sure.
Where $70 for the year, you read as much as you want.
Yeah. And with DC Infinite, they do this thing where it's like, it's $75 if you want the base level, which gets you access to like the regular stuff. But then there's an expanded library that includes a bunch of Vertigo stuff. If you want to pay for that higher
Ultra,
tier.
I think they call
DC
it.
Comics, Infinite Ultra.
Well, and if you don't pay the extra $25, you've also got to wait 6 months for new issues to hit that app. As opposed to just 1 month where it feels like you're reading concurrently.
Right. Which is neat. And I'm glad they're doing it. And I'm glad Vertigo is back. That's awesome. I want to know, is the Sandman universe going back to Vertigo? Are they going to do that?
Shut up.
What?
JD,
Oh, I can't hear JD do anything.
Oh, I was just gonna. You can't hear me?
Now I can.
Yes,
You're
we
breaking
can
up a
hear
little
you.
bit. That's all I think.
Okay, sorry about that. No, I was just gonna say
he was talking over you. So.
It's interesting because it's like the Global Comix. I'm kind of curious how Global Comix and DC Infinite are going to coexist, because like there's a Vertigo tab on Global Comix that you can get all of the Vertigo stuff that I tried when I had my DC Infinite app. I tried to read and I couldn't without having the Ultra tier. Stuff like Dead Boy Detectives, The Kitchen, going back and reading 100 Bullets, Sweet Tooth. I wanted to get caught up on American Vampire and I couldn't. And it's just like, yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what they bring in.
I have a feeling they're going to push Vertigo stuff now that it's back. I don't think. I mean, I don't know if they switch it on the app or something, but they got to start pushing some Vertigo stuff since they're bringing it back. Things are going to shift back to Vertigo.
We got a question here from Brian. Can you download stuff on Global Comix? Like for offline reading?
So. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me see.
That's a recently added feature.
But otherwise, it's like streaming, like
yes,
yeah,
like Marvel Unlimited or DC Infinite.
Exactly.
Right. The elevator pitch for this is it's basically the Netflix of comics.
Sure. Well, yeah, I don't know. I think I think Mark had a point. I think that multiple platforms. You want comics to be available to the most amount of people. And I know that sales are important, but really, is Global Comix going to impact sales? I don't think it's going to impact sales any more than DC Infinite impacts sales.
Not as much as piracy does.
Will it impact DC Infinite subscriptions? Maybe, depending on what they offer. But I suspect that DC will... I think that DC will say, or at least attempt to make a case, that DC Universe Infinite has value-added stuff that makes their subscription worth it to people that are interested. Because it's not just the comics; it's also the community stuff and the fan stuff and the merchandise stuff. It's more than just the comics, even though that's all Matt and I ever use it for.
I agree with you completely, up to the point where you started talking about it's the other stuff. I think
I'm not saying I'm interested in the other stuff. I'm saying that DC will say that this is what we have to offer.
Right. But I mean, to sort of tag on to the first half of the point that you're trying to make, I think DC Infinite Universe can say there's value added here because you can get like up-to-date stuff. You can get a much vaster library of back issues than we're offering over on Global Comix.
Well, and I think that's what we're seeing. I think that that's what we're seeing, because JD is saying that books are not... we're only up to... the most recent book on their service is a year old, and their Vertigo... Like, they have a lot of stuff, but not nearly as much.
Sure, and
so
who knows,
it's going to be... Yeah, like you say, a taster.
Roll out.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of like, hey, it turns out I like the Flash a lot more than I thought. I want to see everything from the Flash.
Well, sure,
right?
And I can get it on DC Infinite.
Yeah, it's
right. If you want to read like almost every issue of the Flash ever committed to paper,
but it's drug dealer theory.
DC Infinite's going to be the place for
give you the product first, so you can get addicted, and then you come and ruin your life.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Drug dealer theory.
First taste is free, then you got
exactly.
But if that's the case, then Global Comix subscriptions should be very, very cheap. But I know that DC doesn't control that, but still, it's like...
well, I mean, they're selling more stuff, which is neat. It's a good idea.
And also, you're right. It's like, it's not just DC.
Right.
It's DC and Image and all these
They're
other
casting
places,
a wide net, and it's a good place to get in there and check out lots of stuff, and it just makes sense. And it's going to push people to wherever they want to go. Maybe they discover, man, Image Comics, that's my jam. That's all I'm reading. And there you go. Good. Let's go back to Vertigo.
Let's talk about Vertigo.
So are things going to like move back to Vertigo? Okay, I'm curious about the Sandman universe.
I bet you they are.
Like the Sandman universe,
So Vertigo is right now they're saying that Vertigo is going to... new Vertigo stuff, I should say, is going to be focused on creator-owned stuff, which was basically what Vertigo was already. Like Fables isn't. I mean, I don't know what kind of deals these people signed, but like Fables. Is Fables creator owned? I don't know.
No, he turned. Remember, he now it's.
Oh, he declared declared that it was public domain.
Yeah, he
right?
declared it's public domain.
Yeah, right. He said, "I declare bankruptcy." Right? Yeah.
I declare bankruptcy.
But like, so Sandman is certainly not creator owned, but a lot of Vertigo books were creator owned. Even though you don't really necessarily see them being published elsewhere, like it's weird to me. I don't
Sandman
know.
is switching.
I don't know
over,
what
though.
the
DC.
I don't know what the deal structure was like.
Exciting news about the Sandman universe joining Vertigo's revival. Originally launched Sandman Universe 2018. Yada yada yada. I'm just so okay on the subject of Neil Gaiman.
I mean, so
we don't
Sandman,
need to go deep.
Sandman is what started Vertigo. So
Right.
yeah, Sandman's moving.
You
back
got to
to
put it back there. No, on the subject of Neil Gaiman and stuff going on. Right, we've seen Good Omens is being ended. It's getting a we're done. Thank you.
Yep.
How much is DC going to go all in on a Neil Gaiman Sandman? You know, like I'm curious to see what.
Well, I
if
don't think we'll
Netflix-
see a lot of new Sandman universe
Yeah,
product.
and like Netflix is deep in this though as well, right? With their Sandman series, DC is restarting Vertigo. And they're bringing Sandman in and everything. Like. It could be a sticky wicket. That's all I'm saying.
But I mean, like the Sandman universe is not going to be the driving force of the new Vertigo. It just isn't.
No, but it's probably the biggest seller, right?
It's just going to be is it though?
I would think
like
so.
the current Sandman universe comics. The trades maybe.
I would think so. As far as Vertigo goes, I mean, the Nice House stuff probably sells well, but do you really think it outsells like Sandman titles? I don't know.
I want you to consider the Sandman universe titles that we've gotten in the last few years that Neil Gaiman has really had nothing to do with. Like, I can't even really name them. Like, there was one about the dreaming, right?
There was a Dead
one
Boys, there was Dead Boy Detectives one.
Dead Boy Detectives. Like these books, do these books sell as much as Nice House on the Lake? I don't know.
Joe, something to consider though is Tynan has been the one writing most of those.
Yeah.
And that guy, man, is making such big moves that if he wants to write them and DC wants to keep him in the fold, I think you'll let him write.
No, for sure. No, you're right about that. But I mean, Matt's question is, Matt poses the question: wouldn't you think that anything branded Sandman is going to outsell anything else? And my answer to that is currently, I don't think so. Because they're not doing a lot of huge stuff with the Sandman universe.
I mean, I guess they have definitely dialed back. It didn't.
Now they're gonna put out another. They're gonna put out another damn printing of all the trades with brand new cover designs. So everyone that really likes their bookshelves all looking nice and uniform,
right,
are gonna have to buy all 10 again.
Well, you can buy and all the Hellblazer stuff. You'll be able to buy all that again, I'm sure. And
yeah.
I don't know if I assume the Swamp Thing is going to move back over there and stuff.
I think so. Brian says in the chat, I'm hoping anything that was Vertigo previously will be rebranded as Vertigo again, and that makes sense to me. So, and to differentiate it from Black Label, because I can already sense the question coming from Matt Baum. Black Label is going to remain the place to go for your out of continuity / evergreen / slightly edgier superhero material. So if you want a book where you can make jokes about Batman's hog, it's going to be Black Label.
Right. Batman fights a werewolf.
If you want a book where you can make a joke about, Sebastian O's hog, it's going to be Vertigo.
Gotcha.
I don't know why Sebastian O was the character I picked.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a reach.
I don't even know if that's the name of the main character. I never read that book.
What about Arnold Palmer?
Looking at the Vertigo.
Arnold Palmer's huge hog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good news
Vertigo's
week.
offerings on Global Comix. There's stuff here that I thought was Vertigo back in the day. Like Why the Last Man.
Yeah. Why the Last Man was Vertigo.
Yeah. I mean, it was either DC or it was Vertigo. DC
Why the
only
Last
had
Man,
two
I forgot
options.
that
Yeah,
one.
that was it. That was before we had so many
Uh,
other options.
Right. The Kitchen,
Well, Elseworlds was still around,
Sweet Tooth.
I guess Elseworlds, but Elseworlds hadn't been used in over a decade.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah, like all of those things were Vertigo, and they
Mhm.
presumably will be again. Like I know that they did do that Sweet Tooth revival miniseries that came out from Black Label. So that's a good example of something that I think would probably be relabeled Vertigo.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And look, if we give Vertigo a push, I think book sales for Vertigo will probably be better these days, and maybe they can re-push a lot of this stuff as book sales instead of just floppy comics. Because Vertigo always kind of won in trade paperbacks. It was more adult and it got into bookstores and stuff. So
yeah,
I think
Vertigo
it's smart.
trades sold like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Hotcakes.
And I think it's smart. I think moving away from it was one of the dumbest ideas they ever had because we knew exactly what it was. It was adult readers.
I can't fathom the decision. But Brian says the story has been that Black Label was an ex-WB executive decision because of contracts, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, it's a brilliant move to bring it back. It's been gone for too long. Despite my efforts to like keep it straight and explain it every time, like I do agree that the nebulous nature of these imprints has been
silly,
damaging to an extent.
It's been silly. Just silly.
I mean, no, because how many? I want to like. Thank you.
Exactly, Mark.
How many? Like, I want to. The majority of readers are not going to be guys like us that are obsessing about how things piece together. They're going to be people that pick up a book because they think it looks cool.
Sure.
They're going to buy Aquaman Andromeda because they love Christian Ward's art.
Yeah.
And they're not going to worry about how it conflicts with anything else happening with Aquaman.
Yeah, they won't have a problem until they ask one question of someone that's reading Aquaman. Like, then things will get messy.
But it's no different than if they picked up a trade paperback of Hook Hand Aquaman from the 90s. It's like, just don't worry about it. It's
but you can explain that as
it's a different era.
That was Aquaman in the 90s. Then don't worry about it. That's fine. Like, I get that.
All you have to say is that this book has nothing to do with this book, so don't worry about it.
Sure.
Again, they're not obsessed about how things fit together.
No, they're throwing stuff against the wall to see what sells, basically. And good for them. And I think we got to a point, this Absolute stuff is a hit. It's a huge hit, and it's selling really well. And so far, 2 books in, we had Wonder Woman this week, it's been perfectly executed. And it feels like a chance for creators to tell a whole cloth, new story that just don't worry about it. Go. We got a new origin of Wonder Woman, and no one's going, that's not how I want it. You know, it's just like, doesn't matter. This is a new Wonder Woman. Totally different. Just have fun with it. And
well, that's because people understand, like,
sure.
Like, again, like people, when you explain the premise of an exercise to somebody, when you explain the rules beforehand, no one's going to be like, I don't get it.
No, of course. And that's
some people will.
That's where I'm going with this.
But they spent a really long time saying the absolute universe is separate. It's going to be this. It's going to be dark side.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
It's not going to be the same.
They made rules.
And so you
for
don't
nerds
have to
like
waste
us.
time explaining to people that absolute Wonder Woman is not the same as regular Wonder Woman.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. They laid it out really well in the sense, if you want the nerdy rules and where this is taking place and why it's happening, here you go, nerd. Here's all that info. If you want to just pick up Absolute Batman because the art looks kick-ass and he's got spikes coming out of him, yeah, you're going to have a perfectly good time. Go for it. I bet Marvel does this next month. You watch.
I'll tell you, though, guys, I think DC made a bit of a misstep by launching their all-in, initiative or whatever at the exact same time as Absolute.
Maybe.
Because as much as I keep up to date with everything, I've been confused.
Yeah.
Now, I get now that it says Absolute, it's Absolute. It's like, it
really is that easy. If it says Absolute on it, it's its own thing.
Well, sure.
But then with the all-in side, it's like, well, it might be issue number 1 or it might be issue number 33, but it's a new creator, and so it could be in October, it could be November. it's. I think a lot of that, maybe if they'd said we're going all number ones, sort of like a New 52.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Or just.
I think there would have been riots in the streets. They can't keep doing
There's
that
no
shit.
good way to do it, whether you do all number ones or you do it this way.
Yeah.
I think the biggest mistake that maybe they made is the fact that the absolute stuff is just drowning the news cycle. And All In's happening, and it's great. And I've read a lot of it. I didn't care for that last Green Arrow that came out. That was, I don't know what they were doing. But
the backup, the Chris Condon
Wasn't bad.
Montos story is different. It's
Just
setting up
not
a
a
new run,
great
but
end.
that lead
Not a great
story was
end.
bad.
But the news cycle is absolute Batman, absolute Wonder Woman, and other nerds like, are you reading All In? And people go, what's that? I think they're kind of buried.
I said, I literally thought it was the same thing as Absolute.
I mean, yes,
Well, but see, no, you're
it's
not
two
a
different
DC guy though,
universes.
JD. So that I can kind of understand. But I guess, I mean, maybe it's just because I've spent literally my entire life like keeping track of shit like this. But I don't really find it all that confusing. I understand. Like, I came up in an age where if a comic book had a certain logo on it, I knew what that meant.
Sure.
If it had a Vertigo logo on it, I knew what that meant. If it had an Elseworlds logo on it, I knew what that meant.
Yeah.
And so if I see a book labeled or Ultimate, if I see a book labeled Absolute, I understand that it's separate from the regular DC Comics. If I see the normal DC bullet and the words All In on it and characters in forms that I recognize, I understand that it's the main DC universe. Like All In is a jumping on point for the main books.
So All In is like they're all new, all different.
No,
yes,
not,
all new. Yes, no, he's
not
right.
all different,
all new
but
Marvel now.
yes,
1. Yes, absolutely right.
But not all.
And-
when I say all different, I mean like I think they're focusing more on like getting back to.
No. He means Marvel's branding.
Right,
all new,
right.
all different.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yes, it's when they did Marvel Now or when they did all new Marvel Now. Yes, it's the exact same thing. It's a jumping on point. Some books have new number ones. Most of the books are just continuing with the numbering they already had and just saying, start now.
Right.
If you want to read Wonder Woman, start now. Wonder Woman's a bad example because it's deep in that whole old man sovereign king of America thing still. But most of the books are, I mean, and not like I read it, it was fine.
It's good. I
haven't read Wonder Woman since issue 1. I read number 15. I was like, okay.
Wonder Woman's good. I've kept up on it. It's good. But they kind of all retroactively were like, all in. Just start with number 1.
Tom King writes it. It's the same creative team, Tom King and Daniel Sampier. But like all the Superman books, Action Comics is still doing that Superman Superstars rotating creative teams thing, but Mark Waid's is more long form than the others. Previously it was 3-issue arcs. His is going to be longer. I don't know how long. But Superman was a Superman number whatever. It was a jumping on point where they introduced the new Superwoman. It was Lois Lane. She's on the cover. It's not a mystery. Most of the books were jumping on points.
Did they do that once before?
Oh, plenty of times.
Yes, they did.
Are you kidding me?
DC Rebirth had a Superwoman, and it was split her. It was split between Lois and Lana for a minute, and then it was Lana, and then Lana lost her powers. So, but this is more like a traditional, like Silver Age idea of Superwoman, where those old. I mean, it's Mark Waid, or no, it's Joshua Williamson, but Mark Waid also writes Superman. Where it's this very old Silver Age idea of like Superman. Well, we don't know where she got her powers, but like she gets powers and she puts on a Superman costume and is his partner for 5 minutes. Like Green Lantern is kind of reestablishing itself in the wake of the whole United Planets thing, and it's really good.
It's great. Jeremy Adams
so,
killing it. It's great.
Yeah, and it's co-written. There's only one Green Lantern book right now. But the backups are by Philip Kennedy Johnson, who wrote the John Stewart book.
Yeah, which was excellent.
John Stewart, Green Lantern War Journal.
It was so good, and nobody bought it.
And
it was great.
Yeah, and they're doing this this thing where it's like a civil war within the emotional spectrum kind of thing. It's crazy. It's wild. It's big cosmic fun, but not in like an exhausting way so far. you know? And so, yeah, All In is like a place for you to go, hey, I'm curious about Harley Quinn.
Right.
Well, good news. Harley Quinn number whatever came out. It's got a brand new creative team. Elliot Kalin, ex writer for The Daily Show, who hosts the Flophouse podcast. If you guys are Maximum Fun podcast fans, he's very good. He's very funny. Harley Quinn was okay. You know, it's not normally my cup of tea, but I laughed at it a couple times. I was like, yeah, okay, I get it.
I did not read Harley yet, so.
So yeah, it's a good place to jump on if you're curious.
Trevor, what do you got?
Hit me with your question.
How is this different than Dawn of DC? Didn't they just do this?
I mean, Dawn of DC was 3 years ago.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not. But Dawn of DC was the last time they did this, about 3 years ago.
Dawn of DC was also kind of a Dawn of DC was also more of a relaunch because we saw a new Superman #1. We saw a lot of new #1s with Dawn DC, Green Arrow #1.
That was just last year.
Oh gosh, I think at this point,
Dawn of DC. Yeah, I thought it was like 2 or 3
Yeah, I
years.
think
years,
that's right.
2 years,
And
I think
I agree.
2022. I think.
It feels just like the Dawn of DC.
Yeah,
2023
so,
was
I
Dawn
mean,
of DC. Yeah.
So it is very similar, but I think it's DC's response to like things have been really complicated for a really long time.
Yeah.
And we want to give people a chance to say, hey, this is a fresh start. Like we're getting a new Justice League. You know, Dawn of DC was very much a result of like Scott Snyder's epic plan for the multiverse and the Dark Knight's Metal and Perpetua and the whole and all of that nonsense, and that kind of gave birth to Dawn of DC.
It was
this
after
is just like
Dark
Crisis, like a hard.
The end of
this is
Dark
a
Crisis
hard
gave us Dawn of
stop.
DC. So
Yeah, this is like
This
a
is all
hard
just
stop.
because it's just because DC like will never do a #1 relaunch. Like Marvel will do that every other week, but DC, this is
Well,
just
but
their way
DC
of doing a reset.
well,
But
DC's
DC
done plenty
has
too.
done it many times.
They've done plenty too. I think this one,
But
they're just
done
not.
one. They did one pretty recently.
Yeah, they're just not
But
doing
not
it this
across the
time because
board.
they don't want to get yelled
Like-
at.
Like Marvel will.
Yeah.
So the last time they did an across the board relaunch of all of their titles was the New 52 in 2011, and that was met with very mixed results.
Oh, and then they did Rebirth.
They did Rebirth, but there were some books that relaunched and some books that didn't.
Yeah.
Like Detective Comics kept going, you know, Action Comics kept going.
Oh yeah, because they wanted to hit those 1,000 issues.
Very
Yeah,
important.
you got
Very
it
important.
exactly right. So I mean, relaunches and reboots and restarts and jumping on points, they're going to be a regular reality for comics. For the longer you read, the more of them you'll see, which seems like an obvious statement, but it's also very like odd to think about. It's like, imagine watching a TV show and being a big fan of something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which has been on for 15 years. It's on season whatever. It's been on forever. And every 5 years, there's a season 1, episode 1.
Right.
And the characters are slightly different.
Yeah, they're dressed a little different. Maybe some of them are gender swapped.
Some of them have been recast.
Some of them are racially
but not all of
swapped.
them.
You know, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, now in this new continuity, Sweet D is Charlie's sister instead of Dennis's sister
Right.
or whatever. You know,
Danny
and it's just
DeVito's
like-
been dead for 5 years, and they have to go to hell and find him.
Right, yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Like, can you imagine that? Can you imagine something like this happening in any sort of other media that you enjoy? No, but comics, like it's expected in comics,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
I think DC and Marvel to an extent, because Marvel was more, even though they advertise it pretty heavily, it felt less rebooty when Marvel did like Marvel Now and then all new Marvel Now and then all new all different Marvel Now, you know, like it all kind of felt samey, like it's just more of the same. With DC it's like Rebirth, and then in 5 years it was Dawn of DC, and then less than 2 years later, it's All In.
There's a reason why we can name them, because they branded the hell out of them and stuck with it.
Right.
Whereas Marvel just moved the all, the new, and the now around somewhere.
Exactly.
All Marvel now all Marvel. Okay.
Oops, all Marvel.
Yeah,
was
all
one,
new now, Marvel new now.
Oops, all Marvel.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I like my best advice is if you're curious, put it out of your mind. Past reboots, past relaunches, put them out of your mind.
Yeah,
All in is a place for you to jump in. And if you have any questions about anything, you know where to find us.
Yeah. But DC Comics, it's a good time to read. It's fun.
It's great. Most of the books have been fantastic.
Okay, let's switch over to our weekly Agatha talk real quick, because I want to
Hold on. Can I pause real quick? Because
Yeah.
I want to get back to something, and I don't want him to think I forgot him.
Okay.
Frank had a story to tell, kind of related to the Capullo thing, as far as creation of independent comics. Frank, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. So back in the 90s, when shortly after I graduated from college, art school, as I called it, I worked for this very small comic book company, very independent, and I auditioned. I did like this, let's call it a spicy comic for them, and I figured I was gonna, yeah, man, forget it. This play, I got other stories. I'll get to it at another time. So I go in. And there's like, it's a whole bullpen, and they assign me a table, and I sit there. Okay, here's a script. We want you to draw this Larry Bird comic book. I look at the person who gave it to me, and this is somebody I actually know, and I go, I hate sports. I am not a sports guy. I am not going to be enthusiastic. Well, just do it and see how you do. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I sit there from 9 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock in the afternoon, drawing, I think I drew 4 pages of a Larry Bird comic book. And I walked out for lunch.
Licensed Larry Bird comic book?
Listen, I have no idea. I doubt it. The way this story goes, I doubt it. Okay. So I walk out, and I walk out for lunch, walk down to a payphone, and I go, call up my friend, and I go, can you do me a favor? Can you come pick me up? Because my dad had dropped me off in the morning because I didn't have a car at the time. And I'm like, can you pick me up because this sucks? And he's like, what's going on? I tell him the story. He's like, all right, we'll be there in about 15 minutes. I literally, I think I walked back in the building, grabbed whatever was mine, and I left. About 2 months later, I'm working. 2-3 months later, I'm working in Pearl Paint, which is, if you don't know, if you're not from the tri-state area, it is an art supply store. And it was a very famous art supply store. Actually a franchise. These guys walk in, and I'm selling airbrushes, I'm selling fountain pens, I'm selling drafting equipment, And these guys walk in, and they're like, "It's you!" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I look at them. I have no idea who these guys are. You're a legend, dude. You're a legend. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You walked out of the work at this comic book company and blah, 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 blah." And he kind of just recaps the story. And I go, yeah, it sucked, man. I was drawing Larry Bird comic book. I'm like, I'm not into that.
Is it any of the Larry Bird comics that I just put in the chat? Because I found some.
Was it sports superstars from Revolution Comics?
I don't think it was Revolution Comics.
All Pro Sports Comics #7.
Revolutionary Comics is what the publisher's name was.
Made its connection
it's
now.
Definitely not this one.
Okay.
I did see it on the stand at some point. It might be this Sports Superstars one. It
That's
might
amazing.
be. I'm not sure. Anyway, so I'm like, why? What happened? And he goes, dude, you have no idea. Somebody complained. Somebody saw you walk out, and they were like, their page rate was like $8 a page. Okay, which was this was the early 90s. It was a shitty page rate. So they're like, somebody walked out and went to the Better Business Bureau and said, or labor department, and said, listen, they're not paying us enough. They need to pay us, and they need to pay us more page rate. So they go, okay, we'll contact them, because basically they were paying them under minimum wage. and we'll contact them and we'll tell them they have to up the page rate. So about a week later, the manager walks in and goes, "All right, everybody, you're all working 8 hours a day, so you now need to produce X amount of pages a day, so you're making minimum wage." So rather than increasing the amount of increasing the page rate, they increased the amount of pages they had to do.
Oh God!
Half the people walked out, and then on top of it all, the manager embezzled all the company's money and left town.
Well, Lord knows that's never happened in a comic book company before. So
Never.
I mean, that is the story of Caliber Comics, basically. So,
but to the point of, it's like you got to work hard to make that. These guys were literally pushing their employees to work harder.
Well, of course.
Because they didn't want to pay them more per page.
There's a reason why we don't have a comics union today, right? They've never been able to put one together, and they don't want one put together, because then all of a sudden artists and creators have power, and we can't have that.
Right.
We need to let the market. Exactly. The market will just balance everything out, and it'll be fine. And everybody will know exactly what they own and get paid what they deserve. Right? It's always worked. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
That's bonkers, Frank. We gotta see pages from this Larry Bird.
You need to track down this goddamn Larry Bird comic, dude. I know, right? I want to review it on the show.
So we're not gonna review it.
Yeah, we're gonna CLB all sports comics. Joe's gonna love it. It's gonna be great.
So I clicked on the. Oh no! Yeah. I bet.
I've still got some Dr. J comics from when I was a kid. we went and saw the Harlem Globetrotters, and Dr. J was there, and he had like his comic book and shit. And I was like, yes, wow. It was great.
I did like the Spalding basketball back page ads from the 70s that were drawn by Jack Davis.
Oh yeah.
Well, those are kind of.
I love the Barkley versus Godzilla ads.
Fuck yeah, dude.
They had a comic of that.
Yeah.
Godzilla got game.
I just posted that question of the week when we were doing monsters, right? And had the Godzilla like got busy and he's dunking, and then I immediately went and found a T-shirt and bought it. I was like, "Fuck yeah, I need that." Godzilla in the Nikes dunking.
to completely shift gears before we get into Agatha talk briefly, I clicked on that link that Matt posted, and then when I closed it, my browser was open to my Facebook page, and in one of these comic groups that I'm in, somebody posted. There is a woman named Christine Farrell. She is believed to be the first person ever to have a complete collection of everything published by DC Comics, starting in 1935. Can you imagine? Oof. And some of the rarest stuff is now up for sale. Surprise, surprise. Oh, but it's like everything. That boggles my mind. Anyway,
that's like just real quick. That's like Stan Lee when Stan Lee sold his collection.
Yeah.
It's like he had a copy of every Marvel comic during his tenure and beyond. I'm sure. Like I can't.
I'm sure he did. Yeah,
and probably stuff that goes back. He probably had like that original, some original stuff from. Back when it was Timely magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah, Marvel Mystery Comics, old Captain America comics when he was getting short stories published in there.
Can't even imagine.
All right, let's finish up with a little Agatha talk.
Agatha talk.
Is Wanda alive? Did they come out and tell us that Wanda is alive?
Well,
is that what they told us?
It by saying maybe. Nobody knows. She doesn't know.
It was very evasive.
She said the question was, is Wanda dead? And Agatha goes, yes. And then she says, no. Maybe. So,
Damon.
I'm sorry. Is the series over? I'm so sorry. I'm like way behind.
No, the series is not over. No. I think there's two more.
Thank you.
And
I excellent on the same day.
Oh, so next week it'll be the final week.
Yeah.
So it'll be like it'll be like a special exercise 2-episode finale.
Right? Our Halloween finale.
So, but she does say like she saw a body, but that was part of the whole like.
Hold on, Damon, talk.
Whatever she was in.
Damon. The crime-solving detective illusion world, right?
Yes.
Is when she saw that.
Correct.
Yeah, my guess is just based off of, and this is not anything that's like a scoop or whatever. There seems to be some movement with like Elizabeth Olsen kind of talking again.
Yes.
She showed up in New York Comic Con rather like abruptly, which she wasn't planned for.
Yes. This is where I was going with all of this. I want conspiracy theories.
And then there's even rumors that maybe at the the end of this, they kind of show that she's whatever ends up happening at the end of the road may very well be what brings her back.
Yes.
Or it could be something along the lines of, like in the comic, we all think she died, right? When the Grand Mountain like imploded in Multiverse of Madness. It could also just be a simple thing of her just like being, I don't know, kind of going somewhere else, having amnesia, and doesn't know who she is anymore.
Right. And like
at the end of like after House of M.
Exactly. And that could be kind of like, Billy realizing that. And then he's like, well, I got to find Tommy. And I guess I got to find Wanda now since this has just been revealed.
I no longer think this is just a self-contained Agatha story that's just, we're going to have some fun. They've dropped too many Wanda hints. And I fully believe at this point, I think it's safe to say, yes, this is bringing Wanda back.
I don't know that. I don't think that we'll see her necessarily.
I think we could.
Not necessarily.
I think we could.
I think that they will confirm one way or the other.
She's been popping up a little too much of late. And
I mean, maybe anything could happen. At this point, like, look, this episode they confirmed. They came right out and said it. Rio is Death. She is Mistress Death.
Death. Yes.
I can't call her Lady Death because in my mind that means something very different. That means 90s bikini clad albino.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot about that person.
But yeah, so she's Mistress Death, Thanos. I wish that she had made a comment about having an ex-boyfriend from space or something. But we know that in the MCU, Thanos didn't really have anything to do with like the personification of death. Whatever.
Right.
But she's Death, like literally Death. The original Green Witch, they called her.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I this is not my thought because I saw this in Screen, but they were talking about it. I said, yeah, that kind of makes sense. He's the the in between life and death, which kind of means that she does have authority over that side of not magic, but of life essentially, and death. So
there's our girl. Yeah. There's Lady.
We can all agree this Lady Death is way hotter. They should have gone this direction. They really should have gone this direction.
Even her name translated.
JD, you're breaking up really bad, JD.
I think I know. Yeah, you broke up there.
Even her name translated, Rio Vidal is Road of Life.
Yeah, River of Life. Actually.
River of Life. Yeah.
Yep. So
I think there is. I think there is
yes, we can hear you now.
There is definitely more than a chance that we do get a glimpse of Wanda in the end of this show. I think it's
I don't think she's going to be like showing up as a cameo, but it's going to make very implicit that she's out there at the end.
I'll go as far as maybe cameo. I will go that far. I'll go that far. Maybe we get a cameo.
Like maybe we see the the statue that crushed her. We see the camera pan in on the statue that crushed her, and the statue has been shattered to a million pieces, and there's no body.
It just seems like there's too much buildup for some kind of payoff with this.
Well, again, Matt, that's still payoff without actually having
not enough.
Elizabeth Olsen
not
in
enough.
the show.
This is the mouse we're talking about.
Confirmation that Wanda is alive. Is still payoff.
No, not enough.
Okay,
they want to put her face in the show.
Well, it's not crazy conspiracy theory, but if they went that route, I could see a world where they call Elizabeth Olsen and said, "Hey, we want you to film something real quick."
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And here's a new contract, by the way. So yeah, you're going to be in secret.
I mean, I think if it happens, it will have been something that was planned from the start, which is why we haven't seen her until now.
Oh, really? We just read a news article about how Marvel wasn't even thinking about any of this crap for the last 10 years. So
that's not what it said.
I think they do like a Flash Gordon Ming the Merciless ring thing, where you see like someone grab the crown.
Yeah.
Sure, right.
Like in the end of Flash Gordon, we see take Ming's ring.
at the end of it. Yeah, I remember that. What I was gonna say, they could even just show like if they go the amnesia route, they could just show her like living a weird life over in where were they?
Sokovia is where she was from.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but they could even show her just like kind of like living a weird gypsy life somewhere and just like doesn't remember who the hell she is.
I just want to see her turn one person into Tetris pieces.
I just want to see beefy Quicksilver brother come back. That's what I want. I want her to magic beefy Quicksilver brother back into life. That's what I need from Avengers 2.
You mean Kraven the Hunter?
Yeah. Yes.
That'd be great.
So Mark in the chat says, everyone's all in on Wanda making an appearance, but I think it's much higher odds we see Tommy come back, and I think that he's right.
I think both.
We will see a grown-up Tommy.
Yeah.
I think both are
a teenage
odds.
Tommy.
The only issue with that, and this is why I actually believe that we would probably see Wanda before Tommy, only for this reason. They haven't established any breadcrumbs about who Tommy is at all. So it'd be kind of a weird thing if they just throw, who's this weird kid? But they know Wanda. So they're like, okay.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You've got to give us some Wanda payoff.
I mean, even if we see a silver-haired teenager with super speed, that like everybody will know.
It's not enough. The mouse has got to spoon feed you. They've got to.
They kind of implied that the only reason Billy came back was because of his witch powers. Like he was able to jump into a new body because of his power set.
Specifically.
Yeah, but they won't do just Tommy. I would practically bet money that they won't do Billy without Tommy.
No, they're obviously they're going to do something.
They've already said it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Billy's one of his purposes. Like, I got to find my brother.
Yes.
They're not going to just leave that out there.
No, there's going to be
the fragments of Mephisto's stolen soul don't just go away.
But he's got to find Mom. He will have to find Mom to find his brother. Promise you.
Possibly.
Calling my shot.
Yeah.
Calling my shot.
Now the next question is, where does that take place? In a WandaVision follow-up series, like it's not going to be its own movie, right?
Listen, everyone. Well, I just hope people remember, but don't forget, Vision Quest is a go.
Yeah.
Vision Quest is a go.
So
I don't think you can make a Vision Quest story
ties in.
Can you make it centric about that? I mean, like, I guess
it won't be just about that.
Yeah,
but it's definitely part of it. Especially if he realizes that Wanda's still out there.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and it could tie the stories together.
There is nothing interesting. Like a Vision Quest is just a Vision story, being a white Vision, figuring out how to like come back to color version.
Although
not very interesting.
James Spader,
you got to have Wanda around for this.
Yeah, I know.
So, what if there is an 11th hour course correction? Not a course correction, but a change in plans where instead of the show being called Vision Quest, it is called WandaVision Season 2.
I mean, that was a bigger hit for him, I'm sure. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know. But I think
or something like
this
that.
all steers to Wanda coming back. There's no question. It's happening. So.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not doubting that. Yeah. My only doubt is whether or not we'll actually see her on this show. But
I'm calling my shot.
I'm not betting against anything.
I'll call my shot and say she shows up because I think they want that payoff. I got to get out of here and see how bad Ohio State is kicking the shit out of my football team.
Oh geez.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad. I'm ready for it.
It's a miracle we even had a gang hang at all. I asked him, "Are you?"
I couldn't watch the first quarter,
and he's like.
I couldn't watch the first quarter. I want to walk into the game, either be surprised, just go, okay, let's just watch something else. I'm going to get out of here. Good gang hang, guys. We'll see you this week. Thanks for hanging, everybody.